Wouldn't it be like the most petty, humiliating, yet startling thing if I just fired my hat at him? So I didn't tell anybody this. I just did it.
For decades, Ron Howard wore the face of innocence, America's favorite red-headed boy, the wholesome Opie from The Andy Griffith Show, the clean-cut Richie from Happy Days. He made millions believe in small-town perfection, in families that always worked things out, in people who meant what they said. But behind that picture-perfect smile was a quiet storm. A child actor forced to play nice with someone who made his skin crawl. A man who built his career on honesty only to be betrayed by someone he once believed in. What if the town of Mayberry wasn't so sweet? What if the show that defined family values was hiding a feud so toxic even Andy Griffith couldn't fix it? And what if the same man who once felt small on set would one day direct Hollywood's biggest films, then get blindsided again, this time not by a co-star, but by a politician who rewrote everything he thought he knew? This is the story Ron Howard never told out loud, until now.
We went to the wrap party. This was it for the Andy Griffith Show.
In October 1960, CBS aired the first episode of The Andy Griffith Show, inviting viewers into the sleepy, wholesome town of Mayberry. America fell in love with Sheriff Andy Taylor's southern charm, with Deputy Barney Fife's lovable goofiness, with Aunt Bee's fried chicken, and of course with Little Opie, played by 6-year-old Ron Howard. To the outside world, Mayberry was everything good about America. Clean, simple, pure. But to Ron Howard, it was the place he learned that grown-ups lie with a smile. On screen, he was embraced by Frances Bavier, the actress who played Aunt Bee, the matronly heart of the Taylor family. Off-screen, the warmth stopped cold. She was never cruel, Howard would later admit, but she was distant, hard. She didn't like me. Even then, he felt it. The chill in her eyes, the silence that followed scenes, and the unspoken rule, stay out of her way. While fans watched Andy Griffith and Aunt Bee laugh and joke each week behind the scenes, something darker brewed. Griffith and Bavier didn't just disagree, they quietly despised each other. It wasn't a dramatic screaming match, it was colder than that. Griffith, ever the warm-hearted leader on set, tried to connect. Bavier, deeply private and professionally rigid, shut him out. One day, Griffith decided to break the ice. He showed up at Bavier's home unannounced. Not to argue, but to talk. Maybe make peace. She slammed the door in his face. She didn't want anyone in her space, he later recalled, least of all me. The tension became a silent battle that no script could resolve. Directors walked on eggshells. Crew members whispered about icy silences between takes. And Howard? He watched, absorbed, learned what resentment looked like in real time. On screen, she was America's favorite aunt. Off screen, she was Ron Howard's quiet nightmare. Frances Bavier, better known to the world as Aunt Bee, represented warmth, wisdom, and old-fashioned values. She baked pies, offered sage advice, and doted endlessly on Little Opie. But to the boy behind Opie's smile, Frances wasn't a loving surrogate. She was something else entirely, distant, demanding, and emotionally unreachable. Ron Howard, decades later, still avoids sugarcoating what that relationship really felt like. While others on set offered encouragement, Frances seemed allergic to warmth. She never scolded him, never lashed out, but that may have been easier to deal with. Instead, there was a chill in the air whenever she was near. A silent discomfort, a heavy presence that never lightened, no matter how many scenes they shared. Howard later admitted she never treated him like the sweet child America fell in love with. She was a professional, stern, controlled, and unwilling to engage with the childlike spontaneity Ron brought to the show. He tried to connect, he tried to win her over, but nothing worked. She wasn't cruel, just cold. And for a sensitive kid growing up on a fantasy set, that coldness hurt more than most people would imagine. One of the most infamous memories came during the episode The Pickle Story, a fan favorite. The script called for Opie to eat jar after jar of Aunt Bee's homemade pickles. The joke? Her pickles were terrible, but the real punchline was off camera. Ron Howard absolutely hated pickles in real life, and he had to eat them, take after take, pretending to love them, all while sitting across from a woman who made him feel invisible. It wasn't just the pickles that left a bad taste in his mouth. That episode became a metaphor, acting out joy on the surface while enduring quiet discomfort beneath it. Howard never lashed out. He was a child trying to keep up, smile through it, get the job done. But years later, when he spoke about his time on the show, it was telling who he praised and who he didn't. No drama, no revenge, just honesty. And in that honesty, we get a glimpse of how early Ron Howard learned that not every smile you see on TV means what it looks like. In an industry famous for fast breakups, shallow connections, and love stories that collapse under the weight of fame, Ron Howard quietly built something most of Hollywood never gets to see: a marriage that survived. Ron and Cheryl Howard's love story doesn't dominate gossip columns or trend on social media. It doesn't need to. While other couples fell apart in public, they grew stronger in private. And in June 2025, they celebrated something almost no one in show business does: 50 years of marriage. Think about that. 5 decades, one partner, one promise, kept. It all started when they were just 16, teenagers with big dreams and no idea what the future held. Their first date was beautifully ordinary. Ron picked her up in a mint green Volkswagen Beetle, took her to a movie, then they grabbed pizza. No limos, no celebrity treatment. Just 2 kids and a car that to this day still runs. Ron jokes, "It still drives great, so do we." But their road to "I do" wasn't as quick as you'd think. Cheryl didn't say yes immediately. In fact, it took 3 proposals before she agreed to marry him. She wanted time to finish school, chase her own dreams, figure out who she was before tying her life to his. That thoughtfulness, that quiet strength was what drew Ron in from the start. And when they finally did marry in 1975, the guest list included close friends and a few co-stars from Happy Days. But it wasn't a Hollywood production. It was intimate, intentional, just like them. Over the years, their love became the anchor of a growing family. 4 children, 2 of whom, Bryce and Paige, followed their parents into film. But it wasn't just about movies, it was about building a real life. School drop-offs, late-night feedings, morning coffees, long walks without cameras. Cheryl, by all accounts, was the heartbeat of that home. Their daughters describe her as the sun, the stars, the moon, a woman who held everyone together. Paige once said trying to explain how much they loved their mom brought her to tears. Ron says Cheryl kept him grounded. She reminded him that storytelling was important, but so was dinner time, and Ron never forgot. In 2023, for their anniversary, he surprised Cheryl by taking her out for a ride in that same mint green VW Bug from their first date. They took the long way. Let the wind in. No paparazzi, no red carpet, just the 2 of them, the hum of the engine, and 50 years of memories between them. In a town obsessed with spotlight, their love lived quietly in the shadows. Strong, steady, still standing. By the early 2000s, Ron Howard had already proven himself, but no one expected what came next. In 2001, he directed A Beautiful Mind, a biographical drama about Nobel Prize-winning mathematician John Nash and his struggle with schizophrenia. The film starred Russell Crowe, Jennifer Connelly, and Ed Harris, and from the very first screening, it was clear. This wasn't just a movie. It was an event. Audiences were blown away. Critics hailed it as a masterpiece. And when award season came around, the film didn't just earn applause, it swept. Best Picture, Best Director, Best Actress in a Supporting Role, Best Adapted Screenplay. Ron Howard stood on the Oscar stage, accepting one of Hollywood's highest honors. But while the lights flashed and the trophies piled up, not everyone was celebrating. Almost immediately, a wave of criticism rolled in. Some argued the film had airbrushed Nash's life, left out messy truths. They pointed to his extramarital child, his complicated behavior, his troubling views. None of that appeared in the film. Why? Howard later explained that he wanted to focus on Nash's journey through mental illness, on love, resilience, and brilliance. The intention was clear, but that didn't stop the backlash. Critics accused him of polishing reality for prestige, of rewriting history for a more palatable Oscar film. The debate got louder. And what hurt Howard most wasn't the industry chatter. It was how the scrutiny began affecting Nash personally. The man at the center of the story began facing renewed public judgment over chapters he'd long tried to leave behind. Howard was shaken. He had told a story from the heart, but the heart, it seemed, wasn't enough. He was learning, painfully, that even when your intentions are noble, storytelling is dangerous. Tell too much, you risk a lawsuit. Tell too little, you risk losing your integrity. It was a lesson he wouldn't forget, and one that would resurface, years later, when another man he trusted, a man he once believed in, would turn into someone he could no longer recognize. It wasn't a co-star, it wasn't a critic, it was a politician. Ron Howard believed in the story behind Hillbilly Elegy. When he optioned the rights to J.D. Vance's memoir, it wasn't for clout or politics, it was for the raw human story. A tale of struggle, survival, and complicated families. Howard approached it with care, hoping to shine light on forgotten communities and fractured hope. At the time, J.D. Vance wasn't a senator. He wasn't a firebrand or a fixture on cable news. He was just a kid from Ohio with a memoir that resonated. They had respectful conversations. Howard gave him a voice, and in doing so offered him a platform. But something changed. Vance entered politics. He aligned himself with figures and policies that Ron Howard found deeply troubling. His rhetoric shifted, away from empathy and towards something sharper, colder, more divisive. And suddenly, the man Howard had once worked so hard to elevate had become a stranger. To the world, it looked like just another political disagreement. But to Ron, it cut deeper. Because this wasn't about party lines, it was about trust. Howard had spent his life telling stories that meant something. Stories that tried to heal, not harm. And now one of those stories had turned into a weapon in someone else's hands. Howard didn't explode. He didn't launch a media blitz or Twitter rant. That's not who he is. But in quiet interviews and carefully worded statements, his disappointment was unmistakable. He felt blindsided, and perhaps on some deep level, reminded of a lesson he learned as a boy on a very different kind of set. A lesson about how the people who smile the brightest can sometimes leave the deepest sting. Just like Francis Bavier's distant coldness taught him to sense emotional dishonesty, J.D. Vance's transformation reminded him of what it means to be betrayed. Not loudly, but silently. Howard had hoped to tell a story of hope. Instead, he helped elevate a figure who now represents something he cannot stand behind. And that realization, it hurt more than any bad review ever could. In J.D. Vance's transformation, something old stirred in Ron Howard. That feeling from childhood. That creeping awareness that someone's smile didn't match their soul. He had felt it before. In Mayberry, with Frances Bavier. She wasn't evil, just hard, just distant. But for a child who wanted kindness, that distance cut deep. Vance had done something similar, not with cold stares, but with shifting values, with a voice that once spoke of struggle and now seemed to speak over it. Ron didn't call anyone out, but the silence between his words told the story. And maybe that's all it ever took. Ron Howard has been many things: a boy with a turtle on a studio lot, a teenager navigating fame, a man with a camera, a father, a husband, an artist. But through it all, he's also been a witness to tension, to betrayal, to love, to silence. He knows now what he didn't know then. Not everyone in Mayberry was kind. Not every story deserves the benefit of the doubt. And not every smile means what it seems. The camera can lie. People can change. Heroes can disappoint you. But the truth? That never goes out of style. Which Ron Howard movie changed your life? Let us know in the comments. And don't forget to like, subscribe, and check out the next video on your screen. You won't want to miss it.